times tonight. The mission of the Rotary Foundation is to enable Rotarians to advance world understanding, goodwill, and peace through the improvement of health, the support of education, and the alleviation of poverty. The mission of the Rotary Foundation is accomplished by fostering effective and sustainable projects around the world. And through our foundation, we reach out to both local and international communities, enriching the lives of millions. So the Rotary Foundation, I don't know how many of you realize or really stop to think about the fact that the Rotary Foundation is funded solely by voluntary contributions. So that's why we have these meetings. That's why we talk about the foundation, and that's why it's so important to talk about it to all of our club members. Rotarians support the foundation through the Polio Plus Fund, which, as we know, is dedicated to eradicating polio around the globe. The annual fund, which is the primary source of funding for the foundation grants and activities that you see get done through Rotary, as well as the endowment fund, which supports the foundation through its balance in perpetuity. RI has identified specific causes, and you'll hear much more about these later from Deb, that in an effort to maximize local and global impact. And at the same time, they do understand that each community has its own unique needs and concerns. Actually, the annual fund pays for the Rotary Foundation operations. Anytime you see TRF, it's another wonderful Rotary acronym, it means the Rotary Foundation. And it funds both the district and global grants. So the annual fund is really the operating fund. It's the checkbook of Rotary International. The endowment, on the other hand, is an endowment. I was really pleased when they changed the name. Some of you who've been with Rotary for a while might remember the permanent fund, which they took endowment and changed it to something else. So, calling it what it is, I think, makes it much easier for people to understand. So this is an endowment fund. The balance doesn't get touched, but a portion of the interest every year is brought into the annual fund to help supplement the goals of that program. And I like this goal. And actually, Deb, I'm not sure if this has changed, of $22.025 billion by 2025. The goal of the endowment fund is to someday fully fund the annual fund with just interest. And that would be quite a day, although I don't know, that's a tough one. And that's a very basic outline about the Rotary Foundation. As we've seen, some of it is already earmarked, Polio Plus and endowment, and within the annual fund, you can designate your money. But I'm going to turn it now to Deb to talk a little bit more about those areas of focus.
So, I'm really glad to see everybody here tonight as we share in our celebration of our Rotary Foundation. So tonight we'll talk some about how, as Corinna said, we give to our Rotary Foundation and how some of those dollars go to great projects that Rotarians are doing around the world. And then next Monday night, we'll talk mostly about how we receive money from the Rotary Foundation for your club and our district to do our own projects. So in the next slide, we'll start talking about Rotary's areas of focus. Now, these are the areas that the Rotary Foundation has selected to focus Rotary projects on. So why these particular areas? Well, because that's where Rotarians have said they want to do projects. So what would happen if Rotarians wanted to work in a new area? Well, that just happened. So Rotarians have asked for an additional area of focus, and it will be added in July. But before I talk about that new area, let's review the 6 current areas of focus. And I thought I'd do that by showing you how our district has relied on Rotary Foundation funds for our volunteer work in every one of these areas of the focus. In the next slide, the area of focus is peace building and conflict resolution. And some people think of this as being for war-torn areas in some other part of the world, but it applies equally well here at home. So, for example, our district had a Peace Fellow who attended the certificate program in Bangkok, and that program is for professionals that are already working in the peace field and who just want to strengthen their skills. So, one of our Peace Fellows that works now in Maine is in the field of restorative justice, which is just a great example of peace building and conflict resolution. In the next slide, I'll start illustrating the next 5 areas of focus by using some of our recent district projects as examples. So far, we've only done one district project in the area of disease prevention and treatment. And it was last year's district project in Guatemala. And remember, the goal of that project was to reduce chronic childhood malnutrition. And that goal is actually listed in 2 areas of focus. For children aged 2 to 5, it falls in this disease prevention and treatment. In the next slide, we see that our district has had 7 years of recent district projects in the water, sanitation, and hygiene area of focus. 2 years, we were building wells in Ecuador. And remember, one of the challenges there was that the community was right on the ocean, and the previous vertical wells had allowed seawater to seep into the wells. But fortunately, our district includes a water engineer, Peter Garrett, who was able to advise that we needed to build horizontal wells instead. And then one year we built water systems in a latrine in Guatemala. And there we couldn't drill vertical or horizontal wells, but used natural springs high above the village for a gravity-fed water system. And for 3 years, our district projects have focused on water and sanitation in Nicaragua. And as with many district projects, this important work continues for years beyond the year of fundraising. And then finally, this year's district project is another great water and sanitation project in Peru. So this is an area of focus we're very experienced in. But in the next slide, you'll see that so far, our only district project in maternal and child health area of focus was again last year's district project in Guatemala, because decreasing chronic childhood malnutrition from conception to the age of 2 falls in that area of focus. Now, in the next slide, we see that basic education and literacy is another area where we've had multiple district projects, both in Guatemala again. The first was in the community around the garbage dump in Guatemala City and ranged from preschool to high school and also adult literacy. And we partnered there with Safe Passage. The other district project was expanding a preschool building in a small Mayan village in the highlands. And the preschool there, it was tiny, but it had been so successful that the local elementary school principal decided to require all the young children in the village to attend the preschool before they entered 1st grade. But the school was too small, so we helped to expand it. And in the next slide, the area of focus is community economic development. Now, the first global grant we wrote for last year's district project was approved in the areas of maternal and child health and disease prevention and treatment. So this year we submitted an identical grant for 4 new communities as the second global grant for this district project. Imagine our surprise when the Rotary Foundation said, it's a great project, but it doesn't fit in those 2 areas of focus. So they decided it would fit best in the community and economic development area focus because we include some agricultural interventions along with the health interventions. And for this example, you can see that it's not always clear, even for the Rotary Foundation, which area of focus is the best fit for a project. Now, our 2018-19 district project is about reintegrating the handicapped into society in Haiti, and that fits perfectly into the community economic development area focus. Now, I think it's impressive that our district has worked in all 6 areas of focus. But what about that new area of focus for next year? Well, that's on the next slide. As I mentioned, the Rotary Foundation listens to Rotarians to decide the areas of focus. And many Rotarians have been expressing interest in doing environmental projects. So the Rotary Foundation will add supporting the environment as an area of focus in July. And this is really exciting for a district for several reasons. First, I know that some of you are very interested in doing projects in this area. And even more exciting is that District Governor-elect Doug Curtis has chosen this new area of focus for next year's district project. Even more exciting is that next year's district project will not be in Guatemala or Peru or some other deserving country. It will be done right here in our own district, in Maine and in Quebec and maybe even New Brunswick. Now that's good because we all know that there's also a lot of need right here at home. And equally exciting is that we will be applying for 2 global grants for this district project. So we will be bringing lots of that Rotary Foundation money back here to our district to help our own communities. So imagine how you might be able to recruit new Rotarians to your club by doing a high visibility, well-funded project in your own town. But you might ask, what's the exact project going to be? Well, that's up to you. Doug Curtis asked me to use this opportunity to ask for volunteers to serve on a committee that will create next year's district project. So think about what types of activities could be done in all of our communities that would support the environment. So, for example, if there was a large piece of land that needed environmental remediation, that would not be a good project because we wouldn't be doing it in each of our communities. But think about something like, for example, the nonprofit window dressers. They operate in communities all around Maine, and they help low-income families to better insulate their homes by building simple wood and film window inserts. And these save on heating costs for the families and help reduce pollution, which is good for the environment. And it could be done in every town. So that's just an example of something that would fit. So the question to you is, what other ideas can your club come up with for something that we can do in all of our communities and that we could weave together into an integrated project? And we may end up with the same project being implemented in Maine and in Canada, or we might find that the needs of the 2 countries are different. And so we have one environmental project that best fits Maine, another environmental project that works best in Canada. So if you have any interest in serving on next year's district project committee, or there's someone you want to nominate to be on the committee, or just have ideas that you'd like to share with the committee, please let me know. So this has been a short review of the Rotary Foundation's areas of focus. Thank you.
Robin is going to be next. You're going to share your own screen, Robin, and she's going to talk to you all about more about the annual fund and every Rotarian every year. Take it away. Just let me know when you need a change.
Okay, I appreciate that. So thanks everyone for your patience. I'm here to talk about EREY, Every Rotarian Every Year. Initiated in 2004, Every Rotarian Every Year is the fundraising initiative designed to encourage support for the Rotary Foundation. It aims to engage every Rotary Club member by encouraging members to contribute $100 per Rotarian per year to the annual fund, encouraging them to participate in a foundation grant or program every year. Go ahead, Karina. Our foundation is dedicated to nearly 7 areas of focus that build international relationships, improve lives, and promote a more peaceful world. Rotarians are encouraged to lead efforts in these areas. The TRF is here to support those efforts, and since it was founded more than 100 years ago, the foundation has spent more than $4 billion, and that's with a B, on life-changing sustainable projects. If you want more information, check your President's Manual, Chapter 7, the Rotary Foundation Reference Guide, or of course, Rotary.org. And did you know anyone can give to the Rotary Foundation? You do not have to be a Rotarian to contribute. Next slide, please. Our foundation is carefully overseen by the trustees of the Rotary Foundation. They ensure that your donations are invested well and spent wisely so they will do good in the world. The generosity of our members and the good work that Rotary does has received top ratings from Charity Navigator, the leading evaluator of nonprofits in the US. It rated the foundation #1 of 10 of the best charities everyone's heard of. And in recognition of our exceptional impact, accountability, and transparency. And for a year or two ago, they were recognized by CNBC as one of the top 10 charities changing the world. So in addition to this, they can be celebrated for their centennial, and the foundation can be celebrated for the centennial in 2016-17. And that's a milestone that few other organizations can reach. Next slide, please. So I'm going to briefly touch on some of the history just because I think it's important. You'll hear these terms later on. The Rotary Foundation had a very modest beginning. Rotary President Arch Klump was addressing the 1917 convention in Atlanta, where he eloquently promoted the idea of endowments for the purpose of doing good in the world. The response was polite and favorable, but the fund was slow to materialize. A year later, the Rotary Endowment Fund, as it was first labeled, received its first contribution of $26.50 from the Rotary Club of Kansas City, which interestingly enough, was the balance of the Kansas City Convention account following the 1918 annual meeting. $26.50 in 1917, adjusted for inflation, is the equivalent of $538 today, so that gives you perspective. Next slide, please. And it wasn't until the 1928 convention in Minneapolis that the foundation was named and a board of trustees was created. Before that, the RI board of directors had oversight of the funds. In 1930, the foundation awarded $500 to the International Society for Crippled Children, better known as the Easter Seals. And for more information about the history, again, Rotary.org. Next slide, please. The annual fund share. The contributions are the primary source of funding for a broad range of local and international Rotary Foundation activities. And through the share system, contributions to the Rotary Foundation are transformed into grants for projects that forever change lives. To ensure that our foundation has sufficient and reliable resources in the future, a small portion of endowment earnings, the annual fund contributions, and cash contributions to global grants will help fund operating expenses and build a little operating reserve. Next slide, please. Contributions to the annual fund share provide district designated funds, or DDF. At the end of 3 years, our district can use the DDF to pay for district projects that our club, your club, and others in the district apply for. When you contribute to the annual fund share, half of your gift becomes available for our district and clubs to use however they want. For example, if you make a gift of $1,000 to the annual fund share for 3 years, your contribution is invested. The investment earnings historically have been used to pay for foundation's operating costs. After 3 years, that money is made available to fund your projects. Half of the contribution, $500 in this case, becomes part of the district's DDF, district designated funds. This is the money our district uses to help fund local international projects. Our district decides how to use it. The other half goes to the World Fund and is the source of the Rotary funding for your global grants. And these funds are used worldwide. Foundation grants are available for all Rotary districts, grant matches, or aid where the trustees determine the need is greatest. The funds we have access to this year, 2021, come from contributions made 3 years ago, which would be 2017-18. So it's really important for our members to support the foundation now so we have the funds to work with in the future and consistently as well. That would be helpful. So next slide, please. In addition to share, donors may direct their annual fund contributions directly to World Fund or some of the foundation's soon-to-be 7 areas of focus that Deb mentioned in her comments. Annual fund contributions directed to the World Fund or an area of focus are credited toward a club's annual giving goal and per capita giving. However, and that's a big capital however, they are not included in the district share calculation. So they do not generate the DDF. And they also count towards club recognition opportunities, which Karina will speak about shortly. Next slide, please. So Giving Made Easy. Rotary.org/donate. You can make a recurring monthly, quarterly, or annual gift through Rotary Direct. This is the portal where someone who's not a member of Rotary would contribute. You choose how much, how often you want to give. It's simple, it's secure, and it makes a big impact. But Rotary Direct, you can manage really easily. Donations through Rotary Direct offers benefits, convenience being number one. You just set it up with your debit or credit card. It takes out your monthly or quarterly. You don't have to remember to take care of this. It's all set for the year. You can donate multiple times. It's fast, it's easy, it's secure. Other options is you can fill out and return the Rotary Direct enrollment form. You can enroll by phone. There's a phone number there for you. All of this, again, Rotary.org. Simply sign into your Rotary, My Rotary account. If you don't have one, sign up for one. It's very easy to do. Select your profile, then donor self-service, and you'll see options to add, adjust, or cancel your recurring donations in case your card gets, expires and you have to reset it up. You can always contact the support center to help, but it's easy to make changes by yourself through this portal. Next slide, please, Karina. You can talk to your club foundation chair and make a gift through the club. You can mail in your gift with a foundation contribution form. And here's the other really cool thing. If your company is eligible and offers this, you can make a matching gift. So you request, sorry, I'm having a hard time talking, request a matching gift form from your employer, send the form to TRF completed, signed along with your contribution. TRF will do the rest. Contact the annual giving team. The address is there on your screen. For details, you can visit rotary.org/matching gifts. Talk to your human resources department, but they do offer this. They will certainly receive your matching gift to go along with it. So another way to give. Next slide, please. And then some other ways to support. You might consider doing similar to what Scott has promoted in the past with Polio Plus, having a moment perhaps. Have a foundation moment. You can do that weekly or monthly or what have you. Have cups on your table or whatever collection works. And I know right now with Zoom, that's not always possible. Not everybody's meeting in person. In our club, let me talk about Happy Dollars. I'll come back. You can dedicate your club Happy Dollars, of course, to any number of funds, but this is one way to go to make sure your club reaches their per capita giving. In our club, we're meeting via Zoom, and our treasurer takes down our Happy Dollar pledges and sends us an invoice monthly. She could easily add a line item for your foundation moment dollars or what have you, if you want to do that. In the past, we've done it even when you check in for the meeting when you're in person. Again, we're not there yet. We would have our club cost, and then you could give an additional $1 or $2 to round up, and that would go towards EREY. Just another easy way to do that. And some clubs hold fundraising events specifically for the foundation. So that's another thing to consider going forward. And then the final thing would be the Rotary credit card. Simply by using your card, you're helping the foundation do good in the world. A portion of every purchase you make on your credit card will benefit the foundation, no cost to you. The foundation has received more than $8 million from the program since it was launched in 2000, including $3.6 million to support polio eradication. So just another way to give. Next slide, please. So these gifts all make a big impact no matter how you choose to give. I hope you join me in supporting the foundation with a gift to the annual fund share. Remember, gifts have a size. Gifts of any size have a big impact. When they're leveraged through the foundation, our network of Rotarians are here and around the world. Next slide, please. And you have a lot of tools available to you. You have your club foundation chair, you have your district foundation team, you've got Rotary.org, and you even can go to the Learning Center on Rotary.org and tune in for a Rotary Foundation Basics if you want more information. You can go to Rotary Club Central and enter, review, and track your goals for foundation. Be sure to use that tool. It's a handy thing to have, and all club members have access to it. So that's what I have for tonight. And from here, I believe it will be back to Karina. Thank you, Karina.
You're welcome. So a person, as you can see here, I think most of us know about the Paul Harris Fellow. It's what you earn when you contribute $1,000 to the Rotary Foundation, or if somebody donates $1,000 in your name or uses points, which your clubs can earn by making donations to the Rotary Foundation. So just like an individual, when a club donates $1,000, they have a Paul Harris. They can gift a Paul Harris to somebody, and a Paul Harris doesn't have to be just in your name. Once you've earned that $1,000, you have the ability to name who the recipient of that fund is, or that gift rather. Oh, look. So that's what a Paul Harris Fellow, and you can also become a multiple Paul Harris Fellow by donating anywhere from $1,000 to $9,999. And you get more stones added to the Paul Harris pin. And you also get a certificate the first time, and you can purchase a medallion and other, Rotary bling that's available out there. The Paul Harris Society. So once you hit that, the Paul Harris Society is a way that you can become a member of the Paul Harris Society by donating $1,000 each year to the annual fund, Polio Plus, or an approved global grant. And the same recognition, the lapel pin, goes along with that. Additionally, once you get over that $9,999 mark and have donated $10,000 to the Rotary Foundation, you are considered a major donor, and that goes up to the level of $249,999, so just under a $250,000. Donors who contribute that $250,000 or more are invited to become members of the Arch Clump Society. So that is another member. And those are all for the annual fund. The endowment has its own set of recognition. The first one being the benefactor. This is a provision that you can make in either some sort of an estate plan, in your will, or a codicil to a will or a life insurance policy that you can have set the Rotary Foundation as a beneficiary. You can also just gift $1,000 to the endowment fund to become a benefactor, and you get little wings that you can put on your pin for that. The next level is the Bequest Society. And that is for those who have in their estate planning given $10,000 or more. And you can see the swag that you get for that donation there. Donors can elect to receive that beautiful engraved crystal and a diamond circle pin commemorating the commitment at each recognition level. So the recognition levels for the Bequest Society go up from level 1 to level 7 through from $10,000 to $1 million and above. And Rotarians can, well, let me show you a little bit about how to actually give. So Robin talked quite a bit about how easy it is to give. I've got some screenshots here to take you through to show you how to set up the giving. So one of the best ways that you can support either the foundation's annual fund or the endowment is through recurring giving. And all you have to do is especially for a Paul Harris Fellowship, $840, or a sustaining member rather, when you're giving $100 a year to the annual fund, hopefully share to become a sustaining member. It's either $840 a month, $25 a quarter, or $100 a year, and you can set up how you like that to come out and have it recurring. You don't have to think about it. It's really simple. I round mine up to $10 a month just because it's easier for me than and I can, like you can do that and then get to your Paul Harris Fellow quicker. It doesn't have to be $100 a month. It can be absolutely anything that you choose. There are 3 ways that you can sign up: online and through the different paper contribution forms. For those of you who still like to do it paper, you can absolutely do that. I'm going to show you here how to give online. So that is the main homepage of Rotary.org. And if you look in the upper right, where this red square is the donate button. When you click on that button, you're brought next to this page, and you can see the big donate button again. So you do have to click that again. And the next thing that it asks you to do is to sign in. So this is a very important step, because once you're signed in, the credits will be, this is where the share identifies who you are. So if you do choose the share option, this is how it identifies who you are and what club you're associated with, so that the funds come back properly. Now, for any of you who have not gone into your My Rotary account, you do have one. Everyone has one. And in the resources is a step-by-step guide on how to log into my Rotary, to the RI website. So the next page you get to is this donate page. Now, any way you donate will get you to this page or a page similar. Going right from the home page on Rotary is, I think, the best way to go, because what you end up with is all of these four. Can you guys see my cursor? Yeah. All of these four tabs at the top, and automatically when you get to this page, you're going to be right here on featured causes, and the annual fund is already going to be checked off. So when you click the annual fund, what is my next slide? Oh, okay. So if you choose endowment, which is what I was talking about before, if you choose the endowment, yes, this is where you can actually do your endowment giving as well. And the first thing that's automatically highlighted when you click that is endowment share. So that's really good. So that means, don't forget, as we're kind of drilling into you tonight, the share part means that it gets shared with your district. So everything that you donate comes back to the district. 50% of it comes back. And this is true for the endowment share as well as the annual share. So just keep that in mind. If you see share and you know, absolutely, if you specifically want to donate to the Rotary Peace Centers, that's what you click on. But for the purposes of it coming back to the district, you do have to choose the share option. So now on those tabs, either let me go back here, either from the endowment tab or from the featured causes, the annual fund tab, regardless of which one you choose, the next screen is going to show your donation information. You select your country, what you want to do, and I believe this is actually also what is automatically selected. And this is where you can select your, whoops, let me go back, your recurring donation. So even if you get in from a link that says Rotary Direct, which is another name for recurring giving to the annual fund, you're going to end up in the same place. So I think for the sake of ease, you're going to end up on this donation page, and it's just as easy to do it here than anywhere. So just know that you can get to every kind of donation on from the homepage donation button.
And can I just point out something there too?
Yes.
If you go through Rotary Direct, you only get to the annual fund. If you do it on the homepage, once you're in my Rotary, you get to all four of them. So you get the endowment that way too.
You mean the tabs at the top?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
Correct. But they all have this same exact donation page.
But Rotary Direct does not allow you to donate to the endowment fund.
Correct.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah. Yep. That's, yeah. Yep. It's the exact same website. They just took 2 tabs away.
Right.
So if you go from the home page, you'll have all of them all the time. And then, of course, if you prefer, you can sign up by mail using either the Rotary Direct paper form or the Foundation Standard Contribution form, both of which can be downloaded at rotary.org. As past RI President Rick King once said, Rotary is a great value. It changes the course of human life. It changes the life of every Rotary beneficiary as well as the life of each Rotarian. And that's true. So thank you guys for all you do to change lives throughout the world. And please consider enrolling in recurring giving so that your annual support will continue to change the lives of so many each and every year.
Karina?
Yep.
I'll also point out that for clubs who may do a foundation fundraiser and they want to give individual members credit for whatever
Mhm.
portion of the check that's going in should be applied to their account. There is a multiple donor form as well, which just requires your RI account number, your actual membership number, and then that can go in and the treasurer can take care of that, and all of your contributions, whether it's buying an auction item for that goes to the value of the value goes to the foundation or whatever, just use that multiple donor form.
Doug, would you be able to make a note to add that to the resources document? So
Sure.
that people could, thanks. Thank you. I think now we're going to move into a breakout session, but before we get there, are there questions? Do we have questions? I see
Lincoln's got one.
Lincoln's raising his hand. Go ahead and unmute, Lincoln. You don't know how to unmute? Doug, can you unmute Lincoln?
I'm trying to.
You might have to request him to unmute.
There.
There we go.
Ah,
I just wanted to mention on the major donor, if you have a spouse and say you Rotarian has contributed $500 and the spouse is given $500, you call Rotary International and request they join both accounts together and will be a major donor then.
but it would be 5,000 each, not 500.
No?
For a major donor?
Yep. Partners can be a major donor at $10,000.
Right.
Ruben's got a question.
Yes, I made a contribution today on the polio drive that Etienne was encouraging us to contribute to, and I registered for the first time into the system. How does that information get conveyed to my club for purposes of keeping records that I've made the contribution and that for my Paul Harris benefits, et cetera?
Through the reports that are available to your treasurer, your president, from RI, that contribution that you made will appear on those reports.
In
Thank you.
Rotary Club Central. So all of the members of your club who have access to the Rotary Club Central reports for foundation can see those.
Thank you for clarifying.
So the next part of our seminar is going to be breakout sessions. We are going to get into smaller groups, and they're just going to be random groups, so anybody could be in any group. And we're going to discuss promoting the foundation giving with your club. So we did write a little paragraph there in the agenda so that you can see, so that you have that to refer to. We want you to think about some of the things you hear from your club members about not giving to the why you don't want to give to the donation. And then what are some of the reasons, maybe some of the things that you learned today so far, to convince them of the impact that they can have by giving? What are some of the things that are important about giving to the foundation that you might know about from other projects that have gone on? And we're going to develop a list of pros and cons. We're only going to take 5 minutes. We're going to develop a list of those, your negatives and positives, and share the top 3 when we get back into the group. So I'll start with our group, because we had a good group. And right away, let me just say, how many of you in your other groups got off track really quickly, trying to talk about other things about the foundation, like projects or other things? That happen to any of you in your other groups? Or do you all, oh great, you all stayed on task better. Now I feel even better. This is just, day just keeps getting better all the time. So our cons, we came up with 2 of each. One of them is that we don't want to invest in the foundation. We want all our money to stay in our community. So, and the pro to that is something that I heard many years ago, and I don't know, Doug, but it might have been from you. But at a foundation seminar, when somebody said to me, if you spend 80% of your club's fund in your local community and earmark 20% for international or foundation projects and giving, that's a really great way to sell that to your club, because 80% of your money, that's the vast majority of that. And spending 20% outside, people can get on board with that. So that was actually one of the favorite things I heard about that. And the other con we had was the personal expense. People get worried about that personal expense. When you see the slide where it says $8.40 a month, that sounds a lot easier, for some people. For other people, giving those major donations and those are not a problem. But for some people who are in Rotary and their way to give is by doing the volunteer work and the hours, that can seem a little overwhelming. So try to make, I guess, talking about it all the time. That's what you said, ATN, talking about what the different ways are of giving and what types of, just bringing it up. So more awareness of the projects. And Chris mentioned that projects are talked about more frequently. People come into their club more to talk about projects that they've been doing. So the awareness is higher. And I have no idea who is in any of the other groups, but does somebody want to volunteer? Oh, Scott, go for it.
Well, I'll just recap a few things. Same themes, wanted to keep money local. We said the counteraction to that is try to emphasize, like you were just saying, how much of your club's money actually is staying local versus what's going out into international projects. And I always like the reminder that I always tell everybody, look at the name of the organization. We're Rotary International. You need to understand when you join this membership that it is an international focused organization, but the vast majority of the money does stay local. We're talking just about different ideas, making sure Foundation Month is highlighted, maybe potentially having speakers around that month that speak on foundation projects to highlight to your membership where the money goes. That could be a combination of local projects and also international projects. There's discussion about building in the foundation donations right into your dues, asking for that to be a voluntary. I believe it was the Auburn Lewiston Club said that they build it into their dues, and they have about 75% participation of people responding back kindly that way. So again, just trying to look at some different alternatives for that. But also it can be just, a little disheartening, as we were talking to one of the smaller clubs, trying to make the minimum amount of money for EREY to qualify for a district grant, and clubs can be frustrated when they can't get to that level. So they choose not to do anything and just keep all the money to support their local projects rather than going through the EREY. So that's a certain hurdle that you have to overcome. So.
Thanks. And how many groups did we have again? 5, 6? Do we have
6.
another 6?
It's
Do we have
6.
another volunteer?
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Thanks,
Again, one of the things that came up was spending money locally rather than having it going globally. But I loved one of the responses was, well, with next year's district project, with the money coming back and being spent locally, that might make a big difference for people seeing, the benefits of donating to the Rotary Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
I can mention a couple things from our group.
Yeah.
One thing was, it's kind of a plus and a minus here, is your club's history of giving. A fair number of clubs have a rich history of donating to the foundation, have Paul Harris Fellowship presentations either several times a year or one time a year and really make it a large event, while some clubs may not have that same history. So some of the new presidents coming in, I was fortunate to come from a club where the foundation is talked about a lot. Not every president had that luxury that I had coming in, so didn't have that same support. Because I knew it was something that was important to the club, I was able to incorporate it into my goals, or our club's goals, at the beginning of the year, where in our group it wasn't necessarily something that they had that luxury.
Right.
Unfortunately, we didn't have pets this year, and I suspect that this portion of Rotary would have been covered in more depth at pets, and probably would have been beneficial to the presidents, especially the presidents that haven't been in their clubs very long. So that history was a plus and a minus. For my club, it was a big plus. For another member here today, it was a little bit of a challenge for that. One thing that I was able to do with our club, we just did it today, being Foundation Month, we kicked it off with a Paul Harris Fellow presentation today. And one thing I was able to do just to prove that the money does come back to us is we were one of the fortunate clubs that we have $5,000 in district grants coming back to us this year. 3 different projects, and I showed them how the $1,000 project is going to turn into $2,000. The $1,500 project is going to turn into $3,000. And the $2,500 project is not only going to turn into $5,000, that might also be matched. That $2,500 might turn into a $10,000 mat for that particular project. So the $5,000 that we're getting from the district, we're going to leverage to $15,000 to be spent right here in our community. So being able to put that in front of your members, it certainly makes it a little easier sell to get them to donate to the foundation when they see that kind of impact in the community. Instead of our club buying $1,500 of books from a local store that probably can use the support right now, we're going to buy $3,000 worth of books for our project because
Nice.
the district we got that grant. So anytime you can show history of success and proof that it does come back to us, you'll get the buy-in.
Thanks, Jeff. That's a great point. Anybody else have anything different that came up? We only have 2 cons, really. What are some of the other arguments against anybody has heard? That's pretty much it.
This wasn't an argument against donating, but it was more of a challenge in that our club and other clubs are seeing maybe a higher percentage of nonprofit membership than we've seen historically versus those in the business community. And so just resource-wise, there's more competition there too. So
Yep.
Not to say that $8.40 a month is necessarily going to break the bank for anybody, but it's.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Actually, if I can jump off of what John just said.
Sure.
Joanna
and Dorothy.
Something that I'm hearing a lot from people in our community as a reason that they're not joining Rotary to begin with, is that beyond the dues, there's the expectation of extra donations, and they don't think they have the ability to make those extra donations. Be able to pull out smaller figures and say it's just $8 a month, $10 a month is a really good way to illustrate to them that they can make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Dorothy?
This wasn't necessarily a con, but it was just a comment that I thought rings true for a lot of clubs, was the impact of COVID on our clubs and our cohesiveness and our ability to sort of act as a group. And I think that the demands on the communities that we're supporting are a little extraordinary right now. So I think that there are competing interests right now for everybody's time, energy, and attention, and certainly the funds and the dollars. So just an observation that I've made.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Cheese Man 2, Doug, Curtis. They're both Dougs. Jeez. Mr.
I just, thank you. I'm sorry I'm all messed up here because my mic and is not on my computer, but we just had a board meeting before I jumped on this call, and we've had half our members, donate towards foundations so far this year, which is down from what we normally are. And I attribute a lot of it to, I'm talking specifically for this year, a lot of it's the fact that we're not together as a group. I think that's a big part of it. As far as our membership dues, we always have people that are late paying their membership. I'm sure that's not uncommon for a lot of people. But I think in this particular year, one of the things that we should focus on is to try to do something extra. And we're also down on our polio contributions for the year as well. And I understand that people are going through a very unusual year. It's not an easy thing. So one of the things we talked about in our board meeting was to go out and just personally just call Rotarians that have not been engaged right now during the pandemic and just speak to them a little bit and just say, hey, how are you doing? I'm calling for 2 reasons. And here's one, we want you to invoke, to be part of our club, we miss you, but also to talk to them about paying their dues and foundation and how important it is and how it comes back. And I think Robin gave a great speech to that. There's more to come at the district level. I can tell you about this, but I did want to say one thing about the district project. And I thought this might be a good time because I know it's getting late. I decided to do this because I think it's important that as Rotarians, we do hands-on projects. And I think it's very difficult to get to Guatemala or anywhere else, but we can drive to Canada and we can drive to places in Maine. So I'm excited once we come up with a couple projects to do, and I'm not the one to come up with the projects, but I do think it's important if you'd like to join the committee to look to evaluate different projects that would be good. We won't have as much money, but I do believe that it will be important. And the Rotary Foundation is the one that's going to be giving us this money from where we were 3 years ago to help us. And we're not going to get certain matches this year, but I do think it's important that we have the opportunity to do hands-on projects. And it makes it very important to the people in our clubs to be able to have that ability to do that. So I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited about it. I hope your clubs can get behind it. I hope you're patient with me because I can't do it without you. And I think it's really important that when we work together as a team, we'll have success, whether it's given to polio, whether it's given to the foundation, or whatever we do. But this year is one year where we all have to come together, and I think we will. I think we will. So that's a little bit off, Corinna, but I wanted to mention that.
Thank you. No, that's good. All right. So next on I'm going to get us moving along here. We do have 2 more. We have polio and scholarships and peace fellowships. And we do not have a closing activity, so that don't worry about that. We don't have time for that tonight since I took up so much time at the beginning. So Scott, if you would like to go ahead and talk to us about polio, that would be fantastic.
Can do that. Let's see here. Can everybody see the polio sign on the screen?
Yep.
All right.
You're good.
Well, I want to say thank you. Many of you in the room tonight probably have seen me over the last 6 to 8 weeks. I've been going around doing a lot of Zoom meetings, speaking on Polio Plus, leading up to World Polio Day. And I certainly appreciate all the support that clubs across Maine and across our district have provided to Polio Plus, especially in these challenging times. So I'm more than happy if you haven't heard me speak, or many of you probably have, but if you'd like to hear me speak again at your club, I'm constantly updating our presentation. Love to get out new information to your clubs. Zoom's been a great format. I've been able to visit many clubs just from the comfort of my home, which has been nice, or my office. So it's never a problem. Just let me know if you're interested in having me present to your membership. Just a couple images that you probably are familiar with. This is what it looks like in 1952 in a gymnasium where we are fighting polio across this country. Very scary time in the world where children were being kept in iron lungs to sustain their breathing. And if you can just imagine the COVID scares that we have in today's world and the media focus, imagine what it was like in 1952 when parents were having to make decisions of whether to let their children go to a public pool or play with their neighbors. Such a great fear, but it still exists in the world today. And our job as Rotarians is we're trying to eradicate this virus from the world. And if we're lucky to do so, it'd be the second human disease after smallpox to be eradicated from the world. Couple basic facts just always want to share with you guys. Polio mainly affects children under the age of 5. There is no cure for polio, but it is a preventable with a vaccination. Currently, only 2 countries remain endemic with the wild polio virus. As a Rotarian, you've been a part of an organization that's immunized more than 2.5 billion children in 122 countries. We've been very successful in reducing the cases by 99.9%. Just back in 1988, there were over 350,000 cases a year of polio. Since Rotary has taken this on, we've had a huge success. 16 million people are today walking in this world that probably would have otherwise been paralyzed with polio. A real quick highlight on some of the numbers what we're facing here in 2020. Year to date in Afghanistan, we are at 53 active cases of the wild polio virus. In Pakistan, we have 79 active cases. We also have many cases from the virus that is being derived by the actual vaccination itself, which I'll go into a little bit more detail. But COVID-19, just like anything we talked about tonight, has had a significant impact on the efforts for Polio Plus. As a result, back in March, vaccine campaigns were actually temporarily halted for the safety of the workers, but also safety for the community members. It would have been a terrible time if we actually had volunteers going door to door to provide vaccinations and actually, spreading COVID-19 from door to door would have been a terrible time. So they did halt all campaigns. But there were still healthcare workers that were working in clinics and health centers. Community education regarding social distancing, hand washing, the importance of wearing a mask were being performed. As part of Polio Plus, we have surveillance labs that have been established. And these labs are being used to test environmental samples to track where the polio virus is occurring across the world. But these labs were able to be repurposed and used for COVID-19 testing. So that's an amazing thing to see our program that we've worked so hard over the last 30 plus years actually be repurposed in a matter of weeks to help fight COVID-19. During the time that the campaigns were halted, we still had children that were going to the clinics for health reasons. And while they were there, they were still receiving vaccinations. So polio vaccinations were still being administered. We also were ordering vaccines because when the immunization campaigns restarted in September, they had to have vaccines ready and on hand and ready to be delivered. We also have, as part of Polio Plus, established a series of contact tracing call centers, and they were still operational, but we also were able to repurpose those for COVID-19. In Nigeria, there's been a huge push on community education with polio, and we were able to use our billboards that were already established in communities to help educate people about the importance of hand washing and social distancing. If you follow End Polio Now on Facebook or any of the social media feeds, you saw there was a lot of information that we were sharing about the fight of COVID-19 and how we as Rotarians supporting Polio Plus and our involvement in fighting COVID-19. And again, as I mentioned earlier, educating communities, investigating cases, training workers. But Rotary International and our partners have helped people who are hesitant about vaccines understand the benefits of protecting their children against polio. That's one of the reasons why polio cases have fallen by 99.9% since 1988. But one of the questions on the horizon that many are asking is, when a COVID-19 vaccine is discovered, will the anti-vaccine community reject this? This is certainly a specific concern that we have on the forefront. And again, vaccines do work. The fight to end polio is the proof of that. We did have some great news recently. In August 25th, the World Health Organization announced that the wild polio virus had been officially stopped in all 47 countries in Africa. This was a historical step towards a global eradication of polio, which is Rotary's top priority. That was a huge accomplishment to have that certified. We also had the chair of the Nigerian Polio Plus Committee being named one of Time's 100 most influential people for 2020. Quite an achievement for a Rotarian. And we continue to have amazing support with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. For every dollar being raised, it's being matched 2 for 1, and that program continues even today. One of the items I've been very excited about and trying to tell other clubs about, back in June, it was an opportunity that they recorded a group of people from Rotary International that gave a presentation on the importance of Polio Plus, and they were able to have that live streamed, and then clubs were able to view that as a part of a program for one of their meals, or for one of their presentations. The ask was, if you normally would pay, we'll say $10 for lunch for a Rotary meeting, why don't you take that lunch money and donate to Polio Plus? And when I spoke to clubs earlier this year about this, one of the clubs I highlighted was the Farmington Rotary Club. I made that challenge of just saying, this would be a great opportunity for your breakfast meeting. How much do you normally pay? And at the earlier part of the meeting, Doug actually informed me they've raised over $400 by having my presentation and asking their members to step up and donate. So another great way of having a little fundraiser, incorporating a presentation and bringing it into your club that way. We just had the World Polio Day go by us on October 24th, but that doesn't mean you can stop. You're more than welcome to continue to promote the importance of polio eradication. I always throw a picture of my daughter in there because we always talk about projects like the Purple Pinky Project, but unfortunately in COVID times, it's kind of difficult to get pinkies dyed and being in a community setting that way. And there are other great fundraisers I'm not going to spend a lot of time on tonight, but really my encouragement to you guys is we're still here. We're still fighting polio. Anything that you guys can do to help support the program in these challenging times, please, we always appreciate it. It's still an important factor of Rotary and why we're members of Rotary International. And I'd be more than happy to visit any of your clubs, whether it be virtual or in person, and give a little bit more insight to your membership. So I'm sorry I cruised that a little fast tonight, but I want to make sure I left time for everybody else. But again, thank you for your support.
That was super speedy. All right, now, oh man. So why break tradition, right? Doug is now gone because he lost power. So I'm going to present his slides. Deb, you are probably going to have to jump in and help me because this may not be my forte. And luckily, the training team is integrated in Google Drive and we share everything there, literally for just such a, an event. Let me see if I can share this. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's still recording. Oh, okay. Excuse me. All right. So Rotary scholarships. One of the things that I mentioned before very briefly about the annual fund was that it funds different types of Rotary programs. Rotary scholarships is one of those programs. And for those of you who know about scholarships from a while ago, it's actually been streamlined quite a bit, which is nice. Over the last 10 years, Rotary has done an incredible job of streamlining all of their processes. The district grants are very simple, and the scholarships as well have been made much easier. They can be funded by either, as you can see, a global or a district grant. So depending on what kind of scholarship it is and where the person's going and the amount of money that's required, you might want to choose your grant based on that. The global grants are much more money than the district grants. So all of the global grant scholarships, the reason why that they cost more is because they are grad level scholarships. They can be 1 to 4 years, but the other important part is that they need to align with one of the areas of focus. The people are submit an application. It talks about what you would expect, all of their previous work and the things that they have been part of and volunteered in and studied, and what their plans are for the future and how that fits in with being a Rotary Scholar. There are host and international sponsors. Oh, yeah. So just like a student exchange, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Deb. There's
Well,
the host
because it's a global grant. For all global grants, you have to have a host and an
club.
international club.
And
And the
they,
30,000 minimum is just because it's a global grant.
Right. Yep, that makes sense. Learn as you go. So, reference on My Rotary and Google Drive, the PDF document. Oh, okay. So in your resources, on your resources page, it looks like Doug has included the scholarship supplement there for you to access. So the district grant scholarships are much smaller. They're much more flexible because they don't have to be a graduate study, although it can be, but they can be secondary, university, or even certificate programs for the student. It can be local or international. And where I guess what I didn't say is that the global scholarship, grant scholarship, that has to be international, Deb?
It depends on, in our district, we can do them within our district.
Oh, because we have an international
District.
district. How about that?
Yeah.
Does it also make a difference if they're going to one of our peace centers for peace and conflict resolution studies?
Well, the wonderful thing about the Peace Fellows is that Rotary pays for all of that.
Oh,
The
okay.
district doesn't have to contribute anything.
All right, sorry to confuse you all. So anyway, the district grants scholarships, just like our district grants, which many of you are familiar with because you've done them, they're, again, much more flexible in all of these areas. And they're managed by the district. You don't have to have a host club in another country. And again, on the document that we've given you, Google Drive, the PDF document, is the best practices link, so that you can find out all about the district grants there. Ooh, okay. Yeah, that was super quick. Can we talk a little bit more about those peace centers, Deb?
Yeah, actually,
that's not one of our topics, but it's, yeah.
Yeah, I gave Doug one of the stories to tell there, so
Okay.
I'll share that story.
Perfect.
It's one I thought was quite fascinating. So the Rotary Club in Philadelphia was noticing what was going on in the streets of Philadelphia with conflict between police officers and people in low-income communities. And they talked to one of the police officers that was doing community policing in a neighborhood and said, you know, what you're doing is peacemaking, because he was trying to avoid conflicts between the police and the people that lived in the community. So they told him about the Peace Fellowship, and he ended up becoming a Peace Fellow, going out and earning a certificate program, and then coming back to Philadelphia. And what struck me about this was the picture of the Rotary Peace Fellow who's a community officer, was standing on a street with the houses that looked identical to the street full of houses that we saw recently in the news in Philadelphia. And it was just really nice to think about how the peace program of Rotary is helping to make a difference in conflict resolution here at home. But again, just the nice thing about the Peace Fellowship too is that we just nominate people, and then if there are more than one person, our district selects which person to send off for a Peace Fellow. Then we send in their name to Rotary International, and Rotary International does the final selection. This year, though, because of COVID, they've had to sort of people that were going to go out, they had to stop. People that had gone out for peace fellowships, they had to bring them back home to their home countries wherever they could. So things are a little bit different until we get through the COVID area. But it's a fantastic program.
All right. So are there any other questions that anybody has?
I have a question
Sure.
for Scott, if he has a moment. Just let me preface this by saying I'm certainly very much in favor of the polio vaccine. But I did some reading about the strain of polio that's being caused by an earlier vaccine. I don't know if you can speak on that, Scott, in terms of what's being done, if that's getting under control, and also about the relations with the Taliban and how they're impacting our efforts to eradicate polio in Pakistan and Afghanistan, and if we're making progress on that front as well.
Yeah, I definitely will do that. Karina, I'm just going to take just a couple minutes. So a couple things. They've made some huge improvements on the actual vaccine that's being used moving forward. As part of the research and development that we've been investing in, and with the World Health Organization and other partners, of trying to remove, there was actually a partially dead polio strain that was included in those vaccines. And it's kind of crazy that there was 3 types of polio, type 1, type 2, type 3. We've eradicated 2 of the 3 strains, but the vaccine that was being used still contained traces of the other 2 vaccines, or the other 2 strains that were no longer present in the world. Well, as children's immune systems were being beaten down through poor water, poor sanitation, we actually saw that there was a circulation of polio virus due to the receiving of the polio vaccination. However, moving forward, they are making significant improvements that there will no longer be an active strand of polio virus in the vaccines. So that's something that you'll see an improvement in the future. And when I say the vaccine-derived issues, we're talking about 0.01%. It's not a huge prevalent issue, but it is enough to cause a great concern amongst the community. So definitely been a point of focus for the last several years, and one that we're making great strides into improving, so we can get rid of not only the wild polio virus, but also the vaccine-derived virus. Going back to the question on the Taliban, if you'll notice, the 2 countries that we're having the biggest troubles with currently are Afghanistan and Pakistan. And a lot of it is to do with access to families. When vaccination teams go to these areas, it has been very unproductive that the terrorism in those communities are actually spreading false information that vaccine teams are coming in, trying to make your children infertile by using these vaccines, and just spreading lies. Also to the point where they've actually shut down streets on the day that they know a vaccination team will be coming through the area, and ride up and down the streets with motorcycles firing off automatic weapons, trying to scare villagers and individuals to not open their doors. So it's been a huge challenge. We've actually had great luck in some communities asking permission to the Taliban leaders in those areas for access to their children, explaining what the situation is. But also, the vaccination teams are using local employed mothers as part of their team delivery system, actually paying mothers in the areas of Pakistan and Afghanistan an income and almost an economic job stimulus package, trying to get those mothers to knock on the doors and gain access to those children. They're going to be far better receiving talking to a mother in their own community rather than white bald Scott Busher from Maine going over to Pakistan trying to ask for access to their children. So definitely been in some enhancements, but the Taliban and other terrorist groups have been very, very challenging in those last 2 remaining areas of the world where polio still remains endemic. So great question, Jeff. And
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate it.
yeah.
Thank you. Very good question. Anybody else have any questions on anything? We've got another 7 minutes. And we'd love the opportunity to answer any questions you might have.
I have more of a generic question. These are being recorded. I'm actually unavailable to cover Monday of next week, but I have somebody else in my chapter that's willing to cover that. This will be recorded and available for me to watch it and catch up on what I missed for next week.
Yes. Wait, what? This one is being recorded right now, yes.
Right, but I want to watch the one for next week.
Next
I can't be on the
Right.
one next week.
Right, but someone from your club is going to attend as well? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So we plan to have it up, and also we'll put the slides on the district website, and we can put it in this resource document too that Corinna's been working on. Good question.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we do ask that each person each club have a representative for next week's meeting. We will record it, but we do need to have somebody live. And being that it's a grant management seminar for qualifications for clubs, we do need a representation for each of the clubs to be in attendance on next week's call from 6 to 8.
Anyone else?
Hey, Corinna, what day is it going to be next week?
Monday.
Sunday.
Yep. Same
Thank-
bat
all
time,
right.
same bat channel. Oh my God, I'm aging myself.
I just want to mention next week, preferably the people that will be writing next year grants should be the ones that will be participating next week. Very important. Not just the president, but if someone else is doing it, those people need to be involved too.
So I'm really glad that they're recording it because I can't watch it next week, but I want to see it.
Yeah. Bye all.
Bye. Have a good night, everyone.